This is the Changing Times, Changing Worlds Wednesday show. We really need to come up with a name. Maybe next year we'll come up with a name. And see, Mary Alice calls it the Chipicon Show, and I call it the CTCW Show. We really ought to come up with another name. And tonight we're going to be talking about what we really wish we knew when we started out. And of course, Changing Times, Changing Worlds sort of does a, we encompass so much. They always say target your audience, and I said, but it's everybody. Everybody has seen a ghost, or does Reiki, or is a dowser, or knows somebody who is, or has an aunt who's done this. You know, we all have some kind of psychic connection, so it's awfully hard to target. But we all came to a point at some point in our lives where we decided, okay, they were wrong. This stuff does work. My husband used to be very frustrated with homeopathy. He says there's 0 parts per billion, but it works. Why does it work? There's nothing there. But at some point you stop, and I think this is good science. You stop worrying about knowing how it works, and you simply start saying, okay, how do I make it work? How do I make it work as well as it can? And that's what I wanted to talk about tonight, because at some point we all jump off the bandwagon. I discovered palmistry worked, and I said, okay, well, I'm going to check out numerology. I'm going to check out, and we make dumb mistakes. Most of us make some really egregiously stupid mistakes when we're young and beginning playing with this. And we want to know, and I figured that if we can say to each other, this is something I really would like to have known when I was young, and I wish somebody had told me. And so then we can tell each other, and it'll be up on YouTube. And if you have a lovely thing to contribute, but you do not want your face up on YouTube, just turn off the camera, but share your wisdom, because we all do something dumb a lot. And if we could share that, maybe we can learn from each other's mistakes instead of learning from our own, which is a lot more. Anyway, I asked a couple people, and I said, what was it that I was like, let's see. Okay, I'm going to say, chill your tits. Don't get so terribly excited. This is, don't get so emotionally invested in it. And figure out a way of just accepting it as, okay, yes, there's gravity, and then there's, oh yeah, that was another one. There's an poltergeists are just Catherine says, poltergeists are just a part of being a teenager. I think that may be a valuable lesson as well. So anyway, so that is that's what we have in the background. I have done so many egregiously stupid things. I believe some really strange. I am a wonderful combination of gullible and scientific. And I think that if we basically, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. If it works, do it. One of the most frustrating things about magic or manifestation or any of that occult stuff is that it works differently under different conditions. It works differently for different people. So I'm going to repeat, as we still got some more people coming in. If do mute yourself if you've got people in your background, but unmute yourself if you've got something to say. If you don't want to say it, put it in the chat and I'll say it out loud for you. And hide yourself if you don't want to be on YouTube, because we do post these on YouTube later, so people will find out the kind of things that we talk to. Because boy, it's such a relief when you finally find people that you can talk about this stuff with and not have to filter and see what am I allowed to say around them. I started coming out with it when I was about 15, which makes it more than 50 years for me. But oh boy, do I remember when we were young in the occult explosion of the 60s. Apparently there was a new age about every 15 or 20 years. But we would brag like, oh yeah, I've been a witch for 5 years. I have been a witch for 8 years. I've been a witch for 11 years. Whoa, okay. And now we actually have real live crones. and we continue to learn. And boy, is it nice. Jane Sibley, who was the other lady who founded Changing Times, Changing Worlds with me, learned an awful lot of her stuff from her grandmother, who taught her art lessons. She would go up to her grandmother's studio and she would be taught art, and she would be taught art. And so that she was so she was able to do things that, well, the way that her grandmother taught her. Well, you know what? So she was probably born late 40s, early 50s. So her grandmother was probably born in the end of the 19th century. We have this concept of time out of mind. It was a long time ago, must have been going along. One of the things that I wish I had known back in the 70s was how much of this stuff was made up. We have big discussions in the 21st century about UPG, or unverified personal gnosis, which is people who believe, who experience, let's just say they experience talking to other types of beings, whether those are fairies, whether those are gods, whether those are totems, whether those are other types of creatures. They have the experience. I myself have been known to talk to animals and plants and other inanimate objects. I don't know anybody I've spoken to who does Reiki who has not Reiki'd their computer or their car or something else. This is just something that you kind of follow it, what you do. Oh yes, here's another thing. Willow says, don't be afraid to learn from fiction. Everybody, it's probably going to work better for you if you use what works for you. And if you're reading something that in a book of fiction that resonates with you, give it a shot. That's what science is. You come up with a theory and you try it and you see if it works. And then if it works, then you see, okay, now if I change it a little, is it going to keep working? Or if I do it a little bit differently, is that going to work better? Coolness. this is a cool, that's science. What is not scientific is to say that if you are, because it's not supposed to work, it can't possibly work. That's kind of how the amazing Kreskin and many scientists function. They say, oh, well, that's impossible. Why is science, what there's no such thing as divination. Why? Because there can't be. Well, why not? Because it doesn't work. Well, have you tried it? No, because why would I try it? Because it doesn't work. Okay, not only is it circular reasoning, is it's not science. You try something, you try something, and if it works, you can build on it. If it doesn't work, you find out under what circumstances it does work. Okay, we got a message from Angela. First thing I'd say for new people to focus on is how to ground. Oh, no kidding. And how to prepare the body before ritual and how to take care of it afterwards and what to expect. I have to say that was one of the things I like best about Harry Potter. I have to go with Madame Pomfrey. Chocolate is very grounding. And I'm not sure why. I know several people at the end of their rituals have chocolate chipped cookies, chocolates, other things. Other people are fond of jerky and meat, which also seems to be very grounding. Definitely a lot of water. It's like after you drink, get lots of water. And we'll see how we are, grounding. To ground is important. When you're having a lot of energy flow through you, and we do that. That's the essence of Reiki is being able to direct the energy. That if I have one thing I would tell everybody is this shit works. Which I probably shouldn't say. We're not going to have a family friendly show on the YouTube channel, but it works, darn it. Would you just stop pretending it doesn't work? No, it doesn't work under all circumstances. But medicine doesn't work all the time. People get all upset because there is no medication that everybody reacts to the same way. No, if they can get it so that it works for most people, they're good. And then everybody is expected to notice for themselves if it's going to be if they're going to have a bad reaction to a certain substance, if they're going to have a personal reaction, that's that's their thing. It's you're supposed to take a certain responsibility. I know that whereas most people codeine, the thing that they give you when you've got when you're hurting is codeine, and puts most people to sleep. It makes me very, very alert. Go fig. Yeah, it also does take care of the pain, so I love it, and it makes coughing go away, which is the other big thing codeine does. Wonderful stuff. But atypical reactions to medicine, totally normal. Doctors understand that they happen. Does the weatherman always get it right? You're talking about divination. Medical diagnosis and weather reporting is your perceive. If from what you can see, you can suggest what's going to happen next. That's what divination is. And why turning some little pictures on cardboard over will give you an idea of what's going to go on in somebody's life next. Who knows? But as long as it does, and I have read for a lot of strangers and had them come back later and tell me that what I said came out. So Okay. Now, I know enough psychology to know that people are most likely to discard the parts that they don't like and remember the parts that they do like. So that is a thing that we have to, if we're going to be good scientists, or as Starwolf says, good metaphysicists, then we have to acknowledge when it doesn't work, and it doesn't work all the time. This is a thing. Don't expect it to always work. I tell people magic is going to be, it's going to have the same amount of cost as anything else. I think if we could fly, we would probably have to put, we don't have hollow bones like birds. We would probably have to put in the same number of calories into whatever magic we were doing to fly to lift us the number of, 10, 20, 30 feet of, if you're going to fly over trees, that's, 50, 80 feet in the sky. It would be like going upstairs that far and then walking that far. It isn't a free ride. No matter what you're doing, if you're doing with magic, you're still expending energy. You're just learning how to use it more effectively. The way that when you use any other tool, that it's a lot easier to drive a nail with a hammer than it is with your hand. Now, maybe Bruce Lee or some of those really good martial artists could do it with their hand. Not me, probably not any of you. And so that's that, have a reasonable understanding of magic. Have a reasonable understanding of how it works. And that's, I think most people these days from fiction assume that magic is where you get something for free. And I just think we should all share the embarrassingly horrible things that went wrong in our experiences, so that other people know about them. Let's see, we got another. The fact that regardless of tradition and how you work your craft, there's always going to be something that thinks you are doing it wrong. Ignore them and do what works for you. Yes, brilliant. That's true. Not only are there people that are going to be critical, they're going to be the skeptics who are going to refuse to believe it no matter what. There's also, you have to do things your way. If you look at athletes or musicians, they do things differently. And each of them does things just a little bit. You've got some basic moves you do, but there's just, everybody has to do it their own way. And that is a thing that we have to be aware of when we're trying these things. I really push a lot for the try it and see if it works. My major hobby is history. So I like to look up historical examples. I found a book while I was, just starting college. I'd been in high school when I found the book. One of my English teachers from 12th grade or 11th grade asked me to come in and talk about witchcraft because I was already known for that kind of stuff by the time I left high school. And so she's come and talk about historical witchcraft because she was doing a unit with the lottery and the crucible and various other witch-themed literature. And so I looked up historical spells from the 16th and 17th centuries. And the funny thing was, I narrowed it down to two that I thought would be fairly harmless because I knew I was going into a high school, a bunch of 15, 16, 17-year-olds with no brains who didn't believe in it. Of course they're going to try it. So I narrowed it down to two. One that would give you the farts and one that would give you warts. I figured either of those things is fairly safe. And so I had, I decided on the warts because I know that you can use compound W and get rid of warts. And the way to get rid of the farts spell was to name the person who would put the spell on you. Well, if most people don't believe in magic, even if they know who's done it to you, you're not going to be able to name them. What if one of those people put it on me and I didn't know the names of all those kids in high school? No, and it did not surprise me at all when 3 days later I got a great crop of warts. Whether it was because somebody cast the spell on me or whether it was because I did the workshop for 3 or 4 classes, I forget which. And so that figured 25, 30 kids per class, that's a lot of idiot teenagers. Whether it was simply karma, that it was coming back on me, my having given them this ability, or whether somebody put it on me, I don't know. I didn't worry about it. I went to get some compound W. And there wasn't any in the store. And I went to, but we had 5 drugstores in town, no problem. I went to another drugstore and no, that one was out too. And I thought, that's odd. And I went to the third one and I got the last bottle. And at the counter, I said, you've had a run on this lately? And they said, yes, the last 2 days we've had a great run on the compound W. So I went to the other 2 drugstores, and except for the one that was 1.5 miles out of the center of town, they were almost out of the compound W because people were having fun with giving each other warts. It could be worse. You got to be careful. I had somebody come to me once and said, can you give me a spell? So-and-so is in love with me and I want to love her back. Years later, it turned out he's gay, and that's probably why he couldn't love her back. But I figured since he was asking to have a love spell put on him, that was okay. Well, I did it. It worked. 2 weeks later, he was back saying, could you take it off? I love her really deeply and both miserable. That's a lot harder to take a spell off than it is to put one on. These are the dumb things we do when we're young and we're learning. And I think that is, when my husband got his vasectomy, we had to go to a meeting with the doctor first. Really irritated me because, why should we pay for it when it's there for the doctor? And it was simply, they wanted to tell us 3 things. One is it could work. In other words, we can't reverse it if you decide you really want to have kids later. The second thing was it could not work. Yes, you could heal and remain fertile. And the third thing was you could die. So it could work, it could not work, you could die. Well, you know what? That is the essence of what it is with magic. It could work, it could not work. It could work. In other words, don't be surprised if it works. I would like to have $1 for everybody I know who started dabbling in magic and didn't think it would work and then freaked out when it did. Or it could not work. So it had better not be the only thing you've tried to get whatever this goal is that you are interested in enough that you're going to do magic with it. Or, I'm not sure you could die, but there's a small chance that things could go terribly wrong. Jim Butcher has a phrase that he has, and I like it. It's called vending machine magic. If you do the right thing, then it works. If you make the right motions, say the right noises, be in the right positions, the thing happens, and boy, we would very much like to have only the things we want happen. But while the universe seems to, whether it's the universe, the gods, or whatever, it seems to like to make us, it likes to play with us. The old, careful what you wish for, you might get it. And of course, some of the best examples of that are with love spells, because boy, the misapplied love spell has some really horrible reactions. I got two spells, not this. And if you've listened to me before, you've probably heard some of these before, but this may be the first time you've sat across a computer for me. And a friend of mine who ran a occult shop had somebody come in. She wanted, I need a love spell, and she's like, no, you don't. It's like, well, you need to teach me love. No, I don't. It's like, you're not gonna. I really need him to love me. No, you don't. It's like, and told her all the reasons why you don't do love spells. And she was back in 2 weeks and said, I need to take the love spell off. I was like, what did you do? I just wanted to make it so that he couldn't live without me. Yeah. And he's in the ICU? Yes. And they think he's going to die. Yeah, because he doesn't belong with you, and you made it so he couldn't live without you. And she helped her, and I think the guy lived, but be very, very careful what you ask for, because if it's really going to drive you crazy, then that's probably how it's going to come out. A more amusing one was a woman who was very, very specific. She was experienced. She knew you had to be very careful when she cast a love spell, and she'd just gotten out of another relationship with a real gloomy emo type of guy. And so she said, please send me someone who loves me and loves me alone and is going to be faithful to me and is cheerful and happy and always glad to see me, and see if you can manage it. And she remembered to say male, which is good. And if you can manage it, red hair would be really nice. And the next week, somebody gave her a beautiful Irish setter who was male and redheaded and totally loved her and was always happy. I had another theoretically experienced practitioner who was convinced that most of his problems were based on not having money. So rather than saying, I want a car, I want this, I wanted that, he pictured himself, he focused, he wanted to manifest seeing himself with money in his hands, piles of money, stacks of money, lots of money going through his hands. And he was immediately offered a job in the local charity to sit in the vault and count all of the donations as they came in and count the money and have all the money going through his hands. And he was experienced enough to laugh at himself. And he says, oh God, I do better than that. Yeah, if what you get is frequently what you ask for is going to be what you get, but not what you necessarily wanted or needed, which is why so many people have some kind of phrase. They say this or something better for the good of all. This for, and that is something. Now I'm going to hope that somebody else has something that they're willing to unmute and share with the, do feel free to put it in the chat, or I'm going to check and see if Facebook has anybody commenting that way. And no, not at this point. But we are, I mean, yes, over 50 years, I have a plethora of stories about stupid stuff I've done or heard about other people doing. I'm going to share something. I got one of Ryan Foxwood's workshops. He was talking about his mother who helped people. She was a conjure woman, and she said she would sometimes say to her customers or clients, whatever you call them, that honey, you done stepped in something. Now, psychically. And I think that is such a brilliant way of looking at it. Sometimes you get some kind of negative energy attached to you, and you need to clear it. And there is no fault. You didn't do anything wrong. I mean, you may have done something a little stupid, like not looking where you're putting your feet in the cow patch. But you still have to clean yourself, but you didn't do anything wrong. And I think a lot of people don't know that. They figure that if there's something horrible happening, they've been cursed, they're on the receiving end of witch wars or whatever. And it's like, see, on Discworld, the philosopher Didactylus says, sometimes shit happens. That just, that's all there is, you know. You just, and sometimes you step in it, and then you just clean up and move on. Our house rule is, if you step in it, you're the one that has to clean it up. But because we have trained puppies in our lifetimes, and that they don't always learn that quickly. Let's see what else. Okay, I'm going to get I'm going to get direct here. Kathy, do you have any advice for somebody? Could somebody share with us what they wish somebody had told them when they were just starting out?
If somebody asks you to do a ritual for them, like say a hand fasting, and says they're going to write the script, if you don't have that script with everything they're going to say and do spelled out in it a week before the event, stop. Do not take a script the day of the event. Do not take a script that has insert vows here. For the participants to say when you don't know what they're going to say. Because sometimes you get to that point in the script and one of them says something and the other one gets this deer in the headlights look and says, what am I supposed to do here? You have gone through this whole ritual and, called things to come and listen and witness it and so forth, and nothing's happening. There's nothing to witness. And then you get to the end of the script and realize that they didn't bother to close anything and have to improvise.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's something to say. Never call up anything you can't put down. Never open a door and not close it.
And never trust that someone will give you a good ritual script just because you thought they knew what they were doing. Read it first.
Oh, always know the ritual. Rehearse the ritual. Good Lord.
Yeah, that would have been good too.
I mean, even when they're doing what everybody else is doing, you rehearse. And learn the lines.
Yeah, don't make exceptions for friends.
There's a good one. I also give good instructions to the audience. If there's going to be any audience participation, we almost had a big battle in the heathen community after a East Coast thing, because several kindreds came together, and it's a lovely thing, but you have 150 people in a circle. Oh my gosh, do not do the same ritual for 15 or 20 people and then do the same darn thing for 100 people or 150 or 1,000. It doesn't, you got to do different rituals for different size groups. But one of the kindreds had a rule that the horn only passed from male to female. And so they weren't all male to female around the circle. And a guy tried to pass it to the guy because they were passing the horn around the circle. And he just crossed his arms and he wouldn't take it. He didn't want to say, I can't or anything. He just wouldn't take the horn. And the other guy's like, what's going on? Meanwhile, everybody's standing around, your feet are getting tired. It's everybody making one toast, 150 at a time. It's going to take quite a while. But if they had said something at the beginning, then we would have known about that. And there was bad feelings afterwards, but they worked it out eventually. But prior planning, major communication is important. I will say one thing about the scaling a ritual up. A lot of circles were designed based on ceremonial magic to Gardnerian, to Wicca, to the assumption that all pagan ceremonies are done in circles. Not quite true. Yes, it is. If you're working around a fire pit or a central altar, a circle is probably the easiest way to keep people all equally spaced. But no, a circle is just a type of ritual. And the assumption that all pagans do something the same way, no, just drive that out of your minds. That is a ritual, and if you're going to do anything that participates with every person in a very large ritual, so pagan pride days or something, have multiple people take whatever the plates of cakes and ale or special things to write on people's faces or asperging or whatever you're doing, have several people take it out so it goes all at once. If you're going to have somebody calling from the side of the circle, have them address the other side. Don't turn and yell outside the circle. If you turn to the south and then nobody behind you is going to hear what you're saying, only give the people parts if they can speak up. There's nothing like listening, standing in a ritual and hearing. It's like being in Charlie Brown's classroom. all you're hearing is, well, that would be very nice if you knew what this big sacred thing was that was going on. And we have another one. You don't have to be stuck working in gender binary deities if you don't want to. No matter how outlandish your work is, there's someone out there doing something similar. This is something I have seen a lot, is that people, I don't know whether it's the 49th monkey thing, and I think I've got the number wrong, but at some point, the same idea pops up all over the country, or maybe all over the world. It's a very cool phenomenon. I don't know how it works. All I know is that I've seen enough evidence that I thoroughly believe in it. But no, you don't. The world is in many ways moving forward. The name, the unfortunately long name, Changing Times, Changing Worlds, was selected in too much of a hurry because we figure that if we work on it now, in another generation, the world will have changed. And once we can accept that this stuff works, boy, will we be able to relax. We'll be able to use energy healing in combination with wonderful drugs and medical techniques in hospitals. I mean, we're already seeing it with insurance companies who have noticed that when they have done studies, people who have energy healing in hospitals People who've had Reiki done with them are getting 2 instead of 5 days of hospital stays. They're taking less pain medication. Insurance companies will do whatever is going to save them the most money and so they're going to encourage this stuff once we can prove that it's working. So yeah, it's going to be a better world once we've relaxed and said, yep. And yes, you can be you can be both schizophrenic and psychic at the same time. So it's like, well, how do I know whether I'm having a schizophrenic episode or I'm having a God is talking to me? Well, that's where we need to work with it. That's a hard thing. And we've had panels on that at CTCW with people who in the medical community who've helped. It's hard. That's a hard one. But yeah, the fact that both exist, it isn't either or. You don't have to do energy healing or medicine. You can do both. That's why we prefer the term complementary rather than alternative medicine these days. Yes. If portals are open, make sure they're closed after the work is finished. No kidding. Raven has a story about wandering around on a Saturday during a weekend-long ritual and going back to where they'd had the ritual Saturday night. And there was the doorway that they had, and they actually had built a little framework, and it was very cool. But the door was wide open, and there were things going in and out. And it was like, close the door, set somebody here for opening and shutting, and go make sure there's nothing on this side that we don't want on this side. And they spent most of Sunday chasing down the ones who didn't necessarily want. If you're going to raise power, send it somewhere. I mean, this is a normal thing that witches do, is the high priestess sends it off to do something with that power. I have seen so many people who are beginning rituals and then just leave a pool of excess power sitting in the ground where they raised it, and it was wonderful, and then they all said blessed be and left. If you leave a mass of power undirected, just like water in a swamp, it goes stagnant and it's bad. It attracts negative entities. It creates negative things. You can step in it, and it can go bad. So don't leave your energy stagnant. Energy needs to move. That's the way. That's one of the basic things. And this is why the teenagers come and, oh, Chipicon, tell us all. Why, yes, I'll be happy to tell you all the stupid stuff I've done. Because don't do this. I mean, if I've already done the dumb thing, I hope we can get you to not do the dumb thing. So anybody else have any things that they know about, that they have observed? Of course, and of course, as with any conversation, one thing will make you think of another thing. I'm just trying to think of the really dumb stuff I did, especially when you're beginning. Oh gosh, yes. If you're doing divination, you're doing it to empower someone. If you see something bad in their future, expand the scope of the divination you're doing, or try another form of divination on top of it, or put a spin on it that will help them figure out how to deal in a positive way with this negative thing that you see coming. Kathy Kane, best palmist I know, has a thing that says, if you see a tendency toward depression on somebody's hands, you say, okay, you have a tendency toward depression. Your job in this lifetime, in this point in your lifetime, is to say no to the depression. Your role, your thing that you have to do now is when depression knocks on your door, then you lock the door and you don't open it. You say, no, nobody here by that name. No, we got the wrong place. Otherwise, the depression is going to move in on you and eat all of the cool stuff in your refrigerator and leave wet towels on your bathroom floor. You empower people. You don't tell somebody, as I did, oh, you got the suicide mark on your palm. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, I've learned better, please forgive me. This girl really, she had the mark, and I have seen that palmistry is amazingly cool. They have gotten into a new aspect of palmistry where, you know how there's fingerprints? Palmistry traditionally just read the lines on your hand. Well, now in the last 20 or 30 years, they're looking at the ridges, which occur in several places on their hand, not usually on the palm part, but usually it's on the fingers and right at the edges. And they have bits that can show if you're good with stringed instruments. They have bits that can show if you're good with rhythm and drums. They can show that you have a good sense of humor. They can show if you were born in the wrong gender body. And everybody I know who's trans that I've checked has that sign, which is really cool in my opinion, because it shows that that it recognizes that the phenomenon of being born in the wrong gender body is there, and that your body manifests something to show you, to confirm your inner feelings. So much of what your body does is an expression of what your what you know on the inside. Learning to listen to yourself, going back to the very first thing of, you've got to learn to ground. You've got to learn and to center and ground, to pull your attention in and put it on one thing, to essentially meditate in whatever way works best for you. Not everybody meditates the same way. Find the one that works for you. If it's not working, try another one until you find one that does work. Be willing to do the work and the research instead of just doing what's been done before and just listening to what others say. Question everything. Yeah, that's absolutely good. You should question everything. I mean, we want to know. In changing times, changing worlds, Jane and I were in our late 50s, early 60s, and we wanted to have a group where you get beyond the intro to classes. But on the other hand, we now have intro to classes because sometimes you may be very, very good at something, and then learning a new thing is something that you also want to do. So now we have both, but it is nice to be able to have classes where it's more advanced, where you can get beyond this is just the beginning. But at the base, learning how to do it and be willing to do the work. Magic is not a free ride. It is a tool. It is a set of skills, like music, like any kind of physical thing that athletes do, like mental, you got to learn your math facts so you can whiz through those math problems. You got to do the memorization. You've got to learn the things. You've got to learn the connections. There are connections between everything, and learning a lot of science is really, really good for making your magic work. The more you know about the natural world, the more you know. This is why they used to call, and I suppose the subject is still called parapsychology. You start by learning psychology. When you learn all of the really cool and bizarre things in the body-mind connection, then you can go on and say, well, you know that we still don't we don't quite understand how that one's working. It's a cool thing that that we don't understand all of them. I mean, what is it? How many years has it been since we've learned that part of your brain is in your gut? Constantly that we keep learning new stuff, and that is cool. And so the ability to learn to communicate with those that we could not communicate with before, I think it's okay. I've now gone in too many directions at once. Where this is where I always turn it back to the audience and say, any questions? Are there any questions? Anybody else got any suggestions of what would you wish to have known? Have you got any books or authors that you would recommend, or books and authors that you would like to say, stay away from? Communication is good. Learn to ground, learn to move energy from one place to another. It's really useful. That is the essence of getting magic going. Is that you have to move the energy from one place to another, and being able to do that. I had a couple come by. I was doing art at a Ren fair once, and a couple came by, and the guy had a arm that was just hanging. And we got to talking, and I don't know what we were talking about. And he said that he was off work because he'd injured his arm. And I asked him if he tried any energy work on it. And he said no. So I said, okay. So I told his wife to put one hand on his shoulder and one hand on his, and the other hand on his. Now picture energy flowing from your dominant hand, your right hand, up into his hand, going up to his shoulder and down again, and going around through, and the energy going through his arm from one of your hands to the other, with his arm as a conduit. And he looked down and he's like, I said, can you feel that? And he said, I think I can. And she said, I don't know if I'm imagining it. I said, yes, of course, that imagining it is how you start. And he looked down and he did a little flex with his hands, and I moved my hand. And I said, yes, and you did that, and you helped. Empowering. This is what it's for. If I had just run energy through him and given him a little jolt of a little bit more to do, then he would have gone home and told everybody about this cool lady he met at this fair who had this weird power. No, he has the power. She had the power. They needed to know that. They needed to know that they could have an impact on his healing. That was the most important thing. And that's what you get when you're old. Because I started out doing dumb stuff, and then and oh my goodness, I was so full of myself. And I'm still full of myself, but I'm getting a little less full of myself all the time. I just keep learning new things and sharing them with other people, because it's very, very cool. But we need to, I'm really very big on trying to learn from other people's mistakes. I have made enough of my own. I love book suggestions, says Kristen. Still new and mostly in the read things phase. I have found so far that Wiccan texts don't resonate with me. Wicca is kind of cool, because Wicca did the big push in the 70s and the 80s to get paganism accepted, that it got up to the point where we could have witches and pagans accepted, in the military and in many other places. And but Wicca did come from what Gerald Gardner cobbled together from sources that he had. I mean, he got those sources together in the 40s and 50s, put out his book on Wicca in 52, after the witchcraft laws were overturned in Great Britain, came over to the Americas in the 60s. In the 70s, it took off till you get up to 79. You had Margot Adler and Drawing Down the Moon and Starhawk with the Spiral Dance. You began to have the festivals and things where you begin to see those rituals that started out based on Freemasonry and ceremonial magic were taken as, this is how paganism is. This is how witchcraft is. There are witches doing every freaking thing all over the world. Most of them don't call themselves witches. Most of them in America just call themselves practitioners of something or other. I use the old ways. I do this is a family thing that we do. But Wicca has been the gateway paganism, like gateway drug. Marijuana is a gateway drug. Wicca opened up the ability to use magic, the ability to have a different skew on faith for a lot of people. And people say, oh, there weren't a lot of books in the 60s. I'll tell you, I had so many books. But Paul Hewson's book on magic, was it Black? I think it's called Black Magic. But there were reproductions of grimoires. There were Hans Holzer did anything occult. There were magazines. There was all kinds of stuff. What they didn't have, was the 2,200 books on how to do witchcraft, how to do Wicca. But then in the 80s, people started coming out of the broom closet, as it were, and started saying, yes, well, we do it with heathenry, and we try and recreate the northern traditions, and we do Hellenism. We go back and we learn ancient Greek, and we use the hymns that have survived. We do Kemetic, which is the Egyptian stuff. So we Ramuyuvula, not saying that right, the Slavic types of language. They didn't become Christian in Lithuania until the 14th century. And so they're going back. There's a whole lot of Russians who are going back to the folk practices. How accurate are these? We don't know. A lot of what the Americans and British are doing goes back to the Victorians, who got a real dose of, oh, we love Egypt, when Napoleon invaded Egypt, and his soldiers brought that home, and they started making up old time rituals, and an awful lot of the folk things that we assume are basic folkways in England. The more they do research, the more they see that, oh no, this is something some rich Englishman started, or a bunch of people started because they thought it sounded like fun. Doesn't make any difference. If it works, go with it. If you're comfortable with it, go with it. If you have a practice that's based on the books of the Clan of the Cave Bear, if you have a practice based on Hogwarts, if you have a practice that's based on Wendy Peeney's ElfQuest books, and it works for you, go for it. If it's working. If it isn't working, try something else. And so that is something that you can look. I mean, if you haven't, one of the most useful things is to find a group and to have, and then you can chat with other people and find out what they do. And if you find out what they do, then you can you can find other groups, because there are heathen kindreds out there. There are druidic groves. There are Kemetic and Hellenic and all kinds of interesting groups that do it slightly differently. There are people who do ceremonial magic, which I'm afraid is a bit too complicated for me. I'll be quite honest. That's probably why I don't do it. And it's, but book suggestion. I'm trying to think of great books. I hate to say, I would avoid going straight to Scott Cunningham's. There are books that are that just give you correspondences. And I find them have too much in common with my mother's crossword puzzle dictionaries that would give you a whole bunch of here's the names of all the goddesses that have to do with healing. Here's the names of all the goddesses that have to do with sex. Here's the names of all the gods who have to do with the sun. Like, yeah, but it doesn't tell you what you need to know. Speaking of dumb mistakes, Isaac Bonewitz had a wonderful story about a group of Gardnerians. And you don't know, Gardnerians are witches who do their circles in the nude. And this group felt that they needed to have wisdom, so they decided to call Athena into the circle. And the way they did that is the high priestess gets a spirit of a god or goddess, or usually goddess, if it's a high priestess, we god for go into the high priest, into her, and then the god can speak through her mouth and give them what they want. So they called on Athena, and it worked that day. Doesn't always, but it works successfully sometimes. And she got there and she looked at them, and she looked at the circle of probably middle-aged, maybe young people, naked, and she looked down at herself and she was naked. And she said, "Why am I naked?" Because Athena, one of the big rituals they did for Athena was changing the clothing on her ritual statue. She was there are many myths about how she liked to look good. She was one of the three goddesses that started the Trojan War because she wanted to be called the most beautiful. So she cared about being dressed, and being naked did not amuse her at all. And she went up one side of them and down the other, and they were smarter and then she left. And then they were a lot wiser, but they still didn't have whatever problem they were dealing with. Do your research. Do not assume that that all gods are one god and all goddesses are one goddess. They have similarities. All white people are not the same. All Black people are not the same. All Indians are not the same, are not Hindu or Muslim or Christian or Jewish. Okay, we got a suggestion from book. Jordan Paper, The Deities Are Many. I like anything by John Michael Greer. He has researched everything. Okay, let's go back to Kristen. If you want to know what kind of books what kind of books? There's just so many kinds of, there's books on divination, there's books on ritual practice, there's books on gods. If you tell me what you want, I will throw it out to the group. I say go to the library and start reading everything that you can read for free. I have a fairly large library. You can see a little behind me. Because I go to the library, and about every 10th book I read at the library, I like interlibrary loan, and I end up buying about 10% of the ones I read, and I have several thousand books now because I only buy the books I want to keep going back to and referring to. I like comparing, I like comparing things cross-culturally. And I think that one of the things I would say is, and I encountered this when I first got into the heathens, because they're the Northern Europeans, and they're like, yes, we follow Thor and Freya and Odin, and it's like, I get along very well with those. But they said, well, you can't talk to Osiris and Apollo and those people. It's like, I have talked to so many people who had Freya send them over to Bridget, or Bridget send them to Freya. I was like, the gods interact with each other the way they interact with us. I told them, look, you can't tell me who to be friends with, and you can't tell me who the gods I'm going to work with are. It's like, don't be pushed. When you do something for yourself, okay, then, and if it resonates with you, go with it. Now, I would say be honest when you're talking about personal experiences. Say that the phrase we use these days is unverified or unverifiable personal gnosis, what UPG. But it's, be honest, but on the other hand, don't let somebody say, no, you didn't experience that. If you experienced it, then, Catherine Stark says, books are friends. They need more friends to hang out with. Yes, thank you, Catherine. I like that. This is what we call enabling. So, okay, I like divination and folk magic, herbalism and folklore. I read a lot of German and Slavic folklore. Oh yes, fairy tales. Fairy tales are a great way to start. Celtic and what they call myths. Personally, right now, I'm getting off on the Christian myths. This is a beautiful mythological time of year, and the Christian myths are wonderful things. One of the things I would recommend immediately, getting up, is books that haven't been put away recently. If you are interested in herbalism, get whatever your local field guide is. Because, and this is Peterson's field guide to, this is editable. There's another one that's field guide to medicinal plants. And start finding out what's growing around you, and you will find wonderful things. Another book I'm fond of is the Little Herb Encyclopedia. And oddly enough, and you can only get it on like eBay or some kind of used books, the Magic of Herbs, which is a Reader's Digest thing that came out in the 90s. Great herbal there. But yeah, I like divination. There are some wonderful divination things. You want something on palmistry, Kathy Kane's book is what? You look up Catherine Kane on Amazon or Lulu and find something. The future is in your hands, I think it is, but Catherine Kane with a K. Capital, the Catherine is with a C, the K is the Kane. She makes it really easy. I have recently, when I'm suggesting tarot, the first thing I'm going to go for is Eden Gray. It's a very basic book, goes back to the Coleman Smith deck. Wonderful, just the very basic stuff. Although I have discovered Lenormand cards, which is another, it's not got a lot of ritual magic involved with it. It has a lot to do with folktales. If you want a card reading system that's very about what's going on in your life and less about spiritual enlightenment, go for the Lenormand decks. It's all based on European mythology, and it's very cool. Let's see what else. Kind of getting close to the end. So we are having, I'm going to say things. We have settled in on the dates and the date, which I think it's up on the website for next year. We have decided that we cannot plan well enough to get a hotel conference next year. So we're going to be doing another online event. The conference will be virtual again next year, and we're going to continue doing the shows every week. And we're going to have, but next weekend, the show is going to be on folk traditions of what to do to attract luck over the upcoming year. How's that? That should be fun, where I will tell you about things from all over the world that should help you have a luckier year next year. For one thing, give the year permission, speak softly to the year and give it permission, welcome it gently, and tell it it's going to grow up and be a good year. So it's like you don't beat a dog and expect you're going to get it. You beat a puppy, you get a vicious dog. If you speak nicely to the year and welcome it, it's going to be a nicer year. So, but there's a lot of things to attract money and to attract health, and that's what I'm going to be doing next week. And I got distracted by getting excited, looking up in all my little books, and forgot to come up with something more interesting for this week. So, but this is tell your friends about it, because word of mouth is how changing times, changing worlds gets around, and everybody can come from the comfort of their own home, and it's a lot cheaper that way because we don't have to travel, and we can just go to the kitchen when we want something to eat. We don't have to go to a restaurant, and yet you can still hang with people who you don't have to pretend this stuff isn't real, which I have to say is the greatest thing for me, is that I have very few filters, and it's hard for me to try and scale back and tell, I do that thing that you're not supposed to do, which is argue with people on the internet. It's like, yes, this stuff works. You don't just deal with it, guys. Ghosts are here, we deal with them. No, they aren't like what's on the movies. It would make a very boring movie if ghosts were like the ghosts in the movies were like what they are on in real life. So yes, healing. Go back and watch Star Trek, and so and McCoy is saying if I could heal a common cold. Well, yeah, healing a common, that's the easy part. Do that all the time. For goodness sakes, we can heal each other. We can, and there's constantly learning new things. This is great. But yeah, go in with, when you're starting, read, talk to people. The Changing Worlds, the group is on Facebook. We should, we can use that to talk. We always open for suggestions of what you'd like to see for the show every Wednesday. And oh my God, I think I've run long. I could have sworn it was 9 o'clock. It was just coming up on 9 o'clock. Now it looks like it's past 9 o'clock. Kathy, am I run long?
Yes, you have.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, then I'm going to turn off the thing. Thank everybody. And see, I told you I have no filters. Okay, I'm going to turn off the recording. Thank you, everybody. And if I stop the recording, It's just going to make everybody go away. Thank you for coming, and especially when we got a big week. Tell all your friends. This is probably going to be posted up on YouTube tomorrow, or if not, the next day. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.